We have a shocking New York Islanders trade update to talk about, as there are reports that multiple teams in the Western Conference are looking to acquire an Islanders center. We're going to be talking about that and a lot more on this episode of Islanders Digest. But before we get into all that, be sure to subscribe to Islanders Digest. Islanders Digest is a brand new channel. You have the rare opportunity to be one of our day one supporters and one of our day one subscribers as we look to hit our goal of hitting 100 subscribers. So if you're a hockey fan, if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders updates, rumors, trade reports, prospect reports, all that fun stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now let's get right into today's news, which is the New York Islanders, according to Stefan Rosner, are getting calls for J.G. Pageau after he's had a bounce-back season from several teams in the Western Conference. Now, this really took me off guard at first. I really, as an Islander fan, have not considered trading J.G. Pageau at all because the news last year, at least during the offseason, was that teams were not interested in J.G. Pageau. It was a situation where if the Islanders wanted to get rid of J.G. Pageau, it seemed like they would have to buy him out. Obviously, this year, as we get closer to the trade deadline during the Four Nations face-off, things have changed. And this is definitely going to get really interesting, especially if another Islanders player, one that's currently playing in the Four Nations face-off, Brock Nelson, if Brock Nelson is moved, it makes a lot of sense for the Islanders to move several other pieces. Kyle Palmieri is a name that has been discussed in recent updates. Brock Nelson obviously has been in trade rumors. Noah Dobson has surprisingly been in trade rumors. But with those names being discussed, it definitely makes sense to talk about J.G. Pageau. J.G. Pageau has one more year on his contract. As Stefan Rosner has said, he's definitely taken a step forward, improving his play this year. We can show his stats right now, as we can see. J.G. Pageau did not have the best year last year. He didn't have the worst last year, but the way he was playing last year, teams were not very interested in him. The Islanders were reportedly considering moving him at the draft last year, and there were just no takers. At that time, it was seen as a salary cap dump, and teams were not interested in J.G. Pageau. Last year, he had 11 assists. He had 11 goals, 22 assists, 33 points in 82 games. He was a -8 player. Did win 54% of his faceoffs, but he just really wasn't there. And as Islander fans will tell you, he really did not look like himself. And when an older player does not look like themselves throughout the season, it is definitely concerning. This year, he has looked a lot better, already scoring 10 goals, 17 assists, 27 points, and he's a +7. So clearly his defensive game has taken a step back up, and his faceoff percentage this year is a 59.7. That is incredible production from the face-off circle. It makes a lot of sense why teams contending for the playoffs would be interested in this player. He's a great defensive center. It's good to, honestly, as an Islander fan, it's good to see J.G. Pageau playing like the center that he is. He's had injury struggles last season. He was really struggling. And now the Islanders have options when it comes to what to do with J.G. Pageau. As this report from the Hockey News says, one of the teams interested in J.G. Pageau is the Vegas Golden Knights. As we know, the Vegas Golden Knights are looking to make another playoff run. They had a tough go at it last season, and they're really looking to make that team more gritty for the playoffs. The Western Conference has some pretty good teams in it, and they definitely need some reinforcements, especially with the news that centerman William Karlsson is going to be out. We do not know how long Karlsson's going to be out right now. It says week to week. As we know as Islander fans, sometimes week to week can be 2 weeks. Sometimes it's the rest of the season. You really do not know. So for Vegas, a player like J.G. Pageau definitely makes a ton of sense. The question is, does it really make sense for the Islanders? And that's something I'm really questioning as the Vegas Golden Knights are inquiring to make this trade. Obviously, if Brock Nelson gets moved and it's clear that the Islanders are going to try to rebuild or at least retool for this season, it definitely makes some more sense. But as a retooling team, I think the Islanders definitely want to get a good package in return. It doesn't have to be an incredible package, but you really do want some future assets. And from this report, the Vegas Golden Knights don't have their first round pick. Now, for a player like J.G. Pageau, it's not crazy to not get a first round pick. If anything, it's actually a little surprising if you do get a first round pick. it's not that easy to acquire those first round picks. There's not that many teams willing to move on from them. The problem with JG Pageau and trading him to the Vegas Golden Knights is more that they would also be interested in the Islanders retaining salary. Vegas Golden Knights do have some cap space, especially with the LTIR, which they have infamously used in the past. However, it does seem like in this trade, they would want the Islanders to retain salary. And that's definitely, I think, something that's not an option for the New York Islanders. If the New York Islanders decide to retool this year, I definitely think it's going to be a one-year retool with players like Matt Barzal, Bo Horvat, Ilya Sorokin, Noah Dobson as of right now, all on contracts. It doesn't really make sense to do a long-term rebuild. They already have so many assets in the team, and there's really not much going on in the prospect pool. So anything the Islanders do is likely going to be some sort of retool on the fly, try to draft some more players. And when you're retooling on the fly, it does not make sense to keep some contracts long term. So while I am open to trading JG Pageau, it doesn't really seem interesting for the Islanders' perspective if there's retention that has to be done. So if the Islanders have to retain half his contract for another season, that really doesn't make sense when the Islanders rather either have JG Pageau's services on the ice next season, which he definitely provides more than $2.5 million of value to the team right now, and based on how he's playing right now, he will provide that next season. Or, yeah, so that doesn't really make sense. And if you are going to trade him and you're going to retain money, you definitely need to get back more in return. You definitely want a first-round pick in this year's draft, and the Vegas Golden Knights do not seem to have that. Now, there is another team interested in JG Pageau. That team is the Edmonton Oilers. And from an Edmonton Oilers perspective, this is definitely an exciting trade to pursue. Last year, they made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, only to lose in Game 7. A critical loss, one that you could argue might be avoided if you had a player like JG Pageau, a defensive center who would also allow, he would provide you more offense, but also he would allow you to play your best two players together without weakening the rest of the lineup. So it makes a lot of sense why the Edmonton Oilers are interested in JG Pageau. However, Edmonton only has about $600,000 in salary cap space. So this is another situation where they would need the Islanders to retain a lot of salary. And that, again, does not seem ideal for the New York Islanders, especially considering that Edmonton does not have their second round pick in this draft or their first round pick. So likely Edmonton would be trying to use a third round pick to get this done. Now, that being said, there is a scenario here where the New York Islanders and Edmonton are able to get a third team involved in this trade where maybe a different team takes on the salary instead of the Islanders. And in that case, I can definitely make the argument where the money, the $5 million for JG Pageau, might be more valuable to the New York Islanders than actually having him as a player. Although I will say he has been very important this year, especially when Matt Barzal and Duclair went down for injury the first time. Having him step up and play a first-line role shows why this player is so valuable and why teams want him once again, which honestly is the biggest takeaway from this. The good news here, again, is that the Islanders seem to have options with JG Pageau again, where last season it did not seem like they had options. It seemed like this was a player they were going to either be stuck with or buy out. And now it seems like if teams like the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers are interested in a player like JG Pageau, other teams are definitely going to be interested as well. To be honest, I don't think either of these trades are going to happen. I don't think they make sense as partners for the New York Islanders where they are right now. We'll see what happens, especially if they trade Brock Nelson. But as of right now, I definitely think the Islanders rather retain JG Pageau. But it's just good to know as a fan that they have options, because a year ago it seemed like they were going to be trapped with a contract that looked like it could be aging poorly. Clearly, that is now not the case. That being said, let me know what you think. Do you think the Islanders should trade JG Pageau at the trade deadline? If they do, what do you think they should get in return? Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, go Islanders.